remarkable thing is there's some actions of one of our board members that I would use the term hypocrite or liar for his actions. The actions that is going on social media with one of our board members are the actions of a hypocrite or a liar. I don't know what the correct term, the right term would be there, when on Facebook there's comments that the money is there. The money is there. We have the money, and the school board went back on their word to rebuild the high school. That's an actual board member on social media spreading lies to the community. Lies are going out to the community. Hypocritical actions, lying to the community, so that person can get reelected to school board. Jose Lara is spreading false information to the community. It is wrong. It is wrong to use social media, spread rumors, false information, so the community votes him back into a position. I wish to heck that he was here to hear this. I'm sure he will. We can't have board members going on social media telling the community the money's there, and the district and the board is not doing the right decisions. The board did listen to the community. Thank God the board decided the last board meeting to put a stop to the construction. Thank you for your decisions at the last board meeting. The money is not there. Thank you for your decisions. And that's what I want to talk about, the CBO. The presentation that Mr. Fromm did was an amazing presentation, and it showed everybody the money's not there.
Good evening. I just have one request, and my request is that you be honest when speaking to constituents about the El Rancho High School project. I know, Mr. Roscoe, you've talked about the people at the park who want it, and please make sure you inform the people at the park that to complete the project, no matter which option is chosen, you need to request a waiver. And that waiver will allow the board to circumvent state laws meant to protect property owners from excessive public debt and taxes. There's a reason, there's a limit. Make sure you tell the people at the park that 2 of your options require state aid that is not guaranteed. You owe it to the citizens of Pete Rivera to be honest with them and prudent with their money.
Thank you, Board. Hi. Good afternoon. I'm here to talk about 9A, and it's actually the community discussion about the choices for the redevelopment, whether it's remodel or rebuild, right? There's been Mr. Zola mentioned a lot of conversation happening this weekend on Facebook and social media about the project. A lot of buzz out there. People are talking. The problem is, and he spoke specifically about Mr. Lara, I'm going to also. And unfortunately, Mr. Lara is about to get the board in very hot water legally with some of the statements and some of his actions that that he did this weekend. Would you like to know what those are? I'm sure you would. Can I hand these out to you guys real quick?
Where's the lawyer?
Is it okay if I hand it to you?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Mr. Lara talks about blocking people. He doesn't talk about it, he does it. And the problem with that, as you'll see here, is that is an unconstitutional act when he's talking about political issues. I don't have enough for everybody, but I'll hand you one. See, he talks a lot about President Trump being terrible. He is. But Mr. Lara is doing the same thing that Trump got legally in trouble for, blocking people on Twitter. He's blocking people on Facebook. It's an illegal act against the First Amendment of the United States of America, case law that happened in New York back in March of this year. It's called the Knight Institute of the First Amendment versus Donald Trump case. Donald Trump lost that case, I'm happy to say, because people should be able to speak their mind in public media and in here in these board meetings and express our views. And by Mr. Lara blocking Mr. Zola, blocking me for my comments, and my comments are on the back of the pages right there, calling me a racist, simply by asking a question if Ms. Ibarra is part of the, what's that group?
mean the barrio?
Unión del Barrio. I'm a racist because I asked that question. Really? You see, Mr. Lara is about to get a lawsuit put on his tail, and as a representative of the school board's going to be also a co-defendant because he represents you guys. If he chooses to not unblock everybody who he's blocked, a public apology, and list the names of those people within 72 hours, I have an attorney ready to go. Get your legal team ready because it's coming. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do is what you should do, is help follow the letter of the law. He can say what he wants, but he can't block me from saying what I want. Or Mr. Zola, or Estella Aguilar if she hasn't made it yet. Hi Estella, she was blocked too. There's 8 people that I know of that he's blocked, breaking the Constitution of the United States of America and case law 8 times. That's 8 separate counts. Perhaps he'll build me a new school for my house. If you guys continue to allow that. So I'm going to suggest you strongly talk to Mr. Lara. He needs to unblock everybody so we can voice our opinion. It's political opinion, it's protected free speech, which he's blocking, and it's creating a problem not only for himself, but you as a board. It's your co-responsibility to help direct the person who's right next to you, shoulder to shoulder, fighting this battle. I know there's a lot of contentious issues with this. When it comes to big money, of course there's going to be contentious issues and people passionate about it on both sides. I understand the passion on both sides, but do not block us from from sharing our voice and sharing our opinion. Fair? Thank you.
Good evening. I got a headline. Breaking news, school board breaks its promise. I have a better headline. Breaking news, El Rancho School Board fulfills its role protecting the interests of the citizens and the students. Moving forward, I'm glad, thank you all for, putting aside the plans as they were and holding it until the proper checks and balances are put in place. On this presentation, I do not see a plan for reassessment. And I think that's a big factor because whether or not, if you choose plan A, plan B, or plan C, those are all total demolish and rebuild. You gotta look at a remodel plan. And one that includes all the sites in the district, not just El Rancho High School. And I'm gonna be short again today. The second thing I'm gonna ask is, will the district notify the public of this change of plans with really good information and not rely on Facebook and social media to spread itself? Thank you.
All right, good evening, board members. I'd like to also talk about the demolition versus remodeling situation. But before we get to that, so Mrs. Moreno actually makes a fantastic point about starting an investigation. Any legally and ethically sound governmental body would do everything in their power to avoid corruption or secrecy. Do you agree? And even more importantly, they would do everything in their power to avoid even the appearance of corruption or secrecy. Yet here, the board is changing bylaws so that the committee, or community bond oversight committee, is meeting less and less frequently until it just is not meeting at all. With this board, it seems that the words accountability and transparency are dead. A complaint has already been sent to the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office, and board members, like Mrs. Moreno, I would implore you to investigate the matter on your own. Look at who are you doing business with. This investigation, or the complaint has already been filed, and when the District Attorney's Office does their own separate investigation, I mean, if you guys are found to be complicit in this or to have had any knowledge of this, your sins are going to catch up to you as well. Now, speaking to Mr. Lara and any board members who feel the need to rush into this project, take Ms. Padilla's advice and be honest with residents, both in person and in social media. Certain board members like to refer to nameless and faceless residents in the park or surveys as justification for moving on with this project. I'd like to ask you, where are they? I don't see them here. I don't see them there. Everyone here is voicing their opposition. So I'd only like to suggest that we move forward with caution, that we know who we're dealing with when we're doing business, and that we are actually moving forward to serve the best interests of the community, not our own self-serving interests. Thank you. Good evening.
Of the buildings that didn't meet the criteria to leave them standing, it was then decided to move on with tearing everything down. So this is why I believe and I strongly continue to request that a structural reassessment be done, because I question the first initial assessment in the way it was conducted in my movement. That's all I want to say about that.
Excellent.
Thank you,
Excellent.
thank you.
We can't use its words. We can't say there was no structural assessment done and then talk about the 3 people who did the structural assessment.
We want data.
No, excuse me, thank you. We can't do that. You can't say there wasn't a structural assessment done and then say, well, there was a structural assessment done. Which one is it? There was a structural assessment done. If you don't agree with that structural assessment, then we can say that, but we cannot say there wasn't a structural assessment done. We did have a structural assessment done. It was done. It was presented to the board. We did make decisions based on that assessment, all right? And we went forward with the plan. Now, something changed, and I'm not sure exactly what changed, all right? But something changed for at the last minute for us to pull back from what we were doing. I'm not sure what changed. I don't know what it is. I'm not gonna assume anything, and I'm not gonna call people out publicly for that, but I do know that this board made a promise. And when we went to the taxpayers, we made a promise that we were gonna rebuild our Rancho High School. And we should do that to the best extent possible with the money that we have, with the plan that we've had going forward. I am not in favor of wasting $4 million. I am not in favor of that at all. I am not in favor of dislocating students from a building and then saying, oh, well, too bad. No, because it's not just our money that gets wasted. It's our students that don't have the facilities that they deserve that gets wasted. That's not okay by any stretch of the imagination. Now, I did not miss 24 facility meetings. That's ridiculous, right? Now, we did have a facilities committee, subcommittee, which I guess board members could attend, right? But, excuse me, I'm not done yet, excuse me. And I was not on that committee, that is for sure. However, I've been informed through every single board meeting, through board updates, to meeting with my CBOs, meeting with the superintendent, every single step of the way. And every single step of the way, we've all been on board, the entire team, until something recently changed. Now, I don't know what changed recently. I really do not know, right? And maybe I'll never find out, and that's fine. But here's what I do know. As a board member here, my commitment is to the kids of the district to build facilities that they deserve at El Rancho High School and at other school sites, wherever that may be, because our kids deserve that. To use money to go directly into the classroom and not do wasteful spending and waste money on escalation costs that could be going into the classroom. So I just want to make sure I make that statement, because that is really important. And lastly, I'm not mincing words here, folks. I'm not using code words. I'm not using pretext. I'm not saying, oh, it's about the tax money, but when it was really not about the rebuild at all, because you weren't in favor of the rebuild to begin with. I'm not doing any of that. What I am doing is saying one more time is that we promised to rebuild our Rancho High School. We have a duty to fulfill that promise.
And I will answer some of those things, because this is a discussion after all. We promised to build or modernize. It's exactly how the bond reads, build or modernize. And I'm going to tell you what has changed. Just to clarify, when we had the steering committee meetings, we had 2 meetings, identical meetings, one for the committee and the same meeting for the board members. We met for 9 months. So I attended both, the steering and the board members. And I don't recall you attending a single meeting, Mr. Lara. But let's talk about what has changed. What has changed, at least for me, was that I was told last year in August that we wouldn't have enough money to rebuild the high school, or that we did the $200 million that the community agreed to allocate to us was not going to be enough money, and that if we proceeded with the high school, and Mr. Orozco, you were at that meeting, that if we proceeded with the high school, that we were going to have probably 3/4 of the high school and not the entire high school rebuilt. Because that the architects were charging for little glasses like this, so $500 each. And I'm thinking, we are not a community that's so affluent that we're going to spend that kind of money on the highest level of materials. I just saw our budget being eaten up by someone's desire to be immensely great, but at the expense of our community. So that's one reason, at least where I change. The other thing is, I asked for budget information to make informed decisions, and I was not provided with that budget information until recently. I asked for how much the sleeve costs, how much this, and I was not given that information. When the community came forward and said, you know what, let's reconsider the little blocks and see-through windows, and the kids were concerned for school safety. And when I approached the architects and HPLE and said, we really do need to reconsider the windows because this is the community school. They should have a say-so as to what's good or not. And I was told, oh no, we're gonna proceed with the plan because it's what we want. I have a problem with that. Because it's not what architects or HPLE or people that are not in the community want, is what we want and what's gonna be safe for our kids. When I started hearing all of that, it's like, something's wrong in this picture. Because we as a community are the ones that call the shots, not people who are gonna tell us what they think is best for our kids.
That's right.
That's what changed, Mr. Lara, for me.
Right. And
Anyway, let's move on.
And so I just want to make sure that we've been getting budget updates on this throughout. So we can't say we haven't had numbers, because we've always had numbers.
Not specific.
We've had, yes, we have. Yes, we have. We've always had specific numbers. We've always known it was going to cost a lot of money. And we actually had discussions about it costing a lot of money. But remember, the word in our district always was, we want second to none. We want second to none. We want the top of our high school. We want the high school that's going to be the envy of all high schools in the entire nation. I mean, those were the words that we were using. I mean, that was what was said.
From my understanding, talking to HPLE, there was never a structural assessment done at El Rancho High School.
Ooh, thank you.
And the reason that was not done there, the reason that there was never one done there, from what HPLE told me, was because it was never an option to modernize it or just, it was always to go forward with the rebuild and that. So he said, that's what I was told, why there was never a structural assessment done there.
And I think for people who question that, or who say, no, we told rebuild, I would challenge them, or I would tell them to read the bond language. Because the bond language is clear. It says, rebuild or modernize.
But the point I just want to make, there was never no structural assessment done at El Rancho High School. It was throughout the other
Because he's
facilities.
made all the money to rebuild it.
And I just want to make sure that that's what we call a bait and switch. You go out, you send flyers out, you knock on doors, and you tell people you're going to rebuild El Rancho High School, and then in a text you say something different, and you have them sign for it. I'm not for bait and switching. I'm not for tricking people. That is wrong. We promised to rebuild. We should rebuild.
Are you ready to write a check?
I am. I'm already paying a check. So are you and everybody else. I'm a homeowner just like you are. And I'm not a homeowner. I'm a renter, and my rent goes up based on
We're gonna
taxes
move
as
on,
well.
Mr. Lara. So we're done with number 9, right? Information?
Yes.